Paul,
Well, I think the Google Docs has
welcome, Paul.
PowerPoint thing.
Did the dishwasher finish?
I don't, it's not as
Oh.
intuitive as you for me to use.
Nothing. Nothing?
Not the dishwasher?
Nothing.
Are you up at 5:30 in the morning?
Nope.
I can make sure that happens.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
How was everybody's week? Good?
Busy, very busy.
Very busy.
Not good?
Didn't get everything done I wanted to get done, so.
Personal or
Both.
professional?
Both.
Okay.
OBE,
OBE.
overcome by events.
Mm.
People call it what and stuff.
Hey, Joe.
Yep.
Is that Papa? We didn't get the next kid with the battery charged.
Huh?
We didn't charge the battery.
What battery?
We have to put it in.
You're right.
All right. Someone want to open us up in prayer this morning? Any volunteers? Go ahead.
Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for all the sisters and brothers here today and our fall colors. I'm here to worship you and learn about you and be with Brother Justin. And thank you for this busy day in your name. Amen.
All right.
Blessings.
Have you seen the sign at the Lutheran Church by the fire department that says, if Jesus could get raised
One
from
more.
the dead, you can
It's
drive
coming.
yourself out
Boys
of
three.
bed.
Or more.
Sinuses? Allergies?
My allergies all week have been bad.
Yeah, usually around this time of year, there must be a plant that pollinates or something in late
Trying to get that house
late summer.
for winter.
What is it? Just weeds?
Everything's dying
Mm.
and sending up seeds and the winds pick up and
Yeah.
there's a lot of smoke this weekend. I don't know if you've seen the.
Smoke doesn't usually bug me, but
I smell it.
you got audio, Jeff? Okay.
You Memorex?
What's that?
You live or Memorex?
What's Memorex?
Oh God, you're too young. Right?
Yeah.
She knew. It's old advertisement,
Okay.
Before the, can you hear me now? Before that.
Mm.
like 30 years ago.
Okay. Was Can You Hear Me Now Verizon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it live or is it Memorex?
That would have been in 8
Our
years.
sound is so good that you can't tell the difference.
Mm. Is Memorex like a recording?
Like
Cassette
cassette recording.
Okay.
Yes.
Recording.
All right. So picking up where we left off last weekend, we were discussing the dragon mentioned in Revelation 12 and what the dragon represents. So we covered that. John actually refers to the dragon as the adversary. So we started looking at what is this adversary?
Anything against God.
Yeah, anything against God. I think we agreed that there is no distinction between the will of the adversary, whatever that is, and the will of the natural man. We discussed how Scripture refers to the adversary as something that imitates truth. We looked at Galatians 2:20. We looked at 2 Corinthians 11, where it talks about how the adversary masquerades as an angel of light, which light represents truth. And we'll touch on that as we get in today on how this adversary operates. So, really quick, we'll finish up on what is this adversary? So Ephesians 2:1-3 mentions that this adversary is the ruler of the powers of the air. I think I got my notes mixed up here. Yeah, so Ephesians 2 says the ruler of the power of the air. And then let's turn to 1 John 4:1-3. Yeah, 1 John. First John chapter 4, verse 1-3. Dear friends, don't trust every spirit. On the contrary, test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Here is how you recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit which acknowledges that Yeshua, the Messiah, came as a human being is from God, and every spirit which does not acknowledge Yeshua is not from God. In fact, this is the spirit of the anti-Messiah. You have heard that he is coming. Well, he's here now in the world already. So when when we read these verses like Ephesians 2, the ruler of the spirit of the air, and talking about the spirit of the anti-Messiah, or even the spirit of Christ, what do we, when we read verses like that, do we glance over them or do we wonder what actually is a spirit? So when we talk about the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of Christ, what are we talking about? Power? Power of God? That's a big one, right? Attitude, motivation. Okay. So how is that? What's the context in accordance with the Spirit of Christ when we talk about attitude and mindset? What? Okay. Okay. It's what inhabits our mind.
We're told to have the mind of Christ, to have his thoughts, how he can conduct himself isn't the right way to say it, but through his word tells us how he expects us to act.
Right.
So act according to.
Does that mean he's replacing our thoughts with his thoughts?
No, it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Our thoughts are like his thoughts.
Right. So what's become most important to us is in line with, or is Christ. So naturally our thoughts and our attitude would be in line, hopefully, with his.
That's why we need to be transformed and have our mind renewed.
Right. So God's power, 1 Corinthians 2 talks about how the Spirit is both wisdom, understanding, and discernment. So it gives us the ability to understand God and have the wisdom of God and to have discernment. When we say discernment, we're referring to like Holly said, if we're operating by the mind of Christ, then we're operating by his discernments, not our own.
Yeah, where he makes
Right. When we talk about the Spirit or the fruit of the spirits, right? Those are some indications of what the Spirit represents, right? And how it transforms us. So what if we're devoid of that Spirit? What if we're devoid of the Spirit of God? Then what are we? 1 Corinthians 2:14 says we're just the natural man. We're in our natural state. We exist in our natural state. So in our natural state, I like how, we bring up Jordan Peterson quite a bit, and oftentimes it's because I think he's right in a lot of things. And he talks about this hierarchy of decisions. And so when we live in this natural state, what lives at the top of our hierarchy of decision making? Me, right?
Not you. Or you.
What's at the top of the list that drives us? Most often, it's us, right? Whether it's to be successful professionally, successful sexually, whatever.
How I feel how I feel.
Yeah.
Feelings are important to me too.
That's going to be also kind of directed a little bit by culture. So I mean, we can talk about because
That's influence. Certainly.
Yeah.
so I mean
Your upbringing.
And that goes with discernment, right? Your discernment is influenced quite often by your culture or your society. What's acceptable now, or what we discern as being acceptable, is a lot different than it was in my parents' or grandparents' lifetime. Yes, so me's usually at the top of that hierarchy. And I think that's why, in part, Pastor brought up or talked about Proverbs and how it's addressing, those things of the world that are good. What is that? Or Ecclesiastes, right?
Yes.
Sorry. But it says that, in reference to the world, it says that grandchildren are the crown of the ages, and the glory of children is to their fathers. Yeah. Well, why is that? Well, for a brief time in people's lives, they put aside, what becomes at the forefront of your hierarchy of decisions. It's no longer you, if you're a good parent. It's your children.
Until they betray you.
So whatever power that's in the world that whatever power that's in the world that entices us is what influences our decision making. So it says that the adversary is spirit. It is the power of the world. It is the attitude of the world. There is an attitude and power that has hold of the world. Do you ever wonder why or how an ideology can spread so far and become so entrenched in people's minds and hearts? Just think through the events of history and how, even those that are so atrocious. I don't, if anybody's read the Gulag Archipelago. I haven't read the whole book, but parts of it. And
Mob mentality.
yeah, it would, it wouldn't be as surprising if individuals, degraded to that or sought after that base of desire that, that they do in that book. But the fact that there's thousands and thousands of people that followed that same ideology.
Fear is a powerful thing.
Yeah, fear is a powerful thing. So are rulers.
That's what sustains that. I was thinking of the Salem witch trials. How did you get there? We make, they parody that all the time. Oh, she's a witch. But that happened. That was real. People died. Gruesome deaths.
Yeah.
Why? Well,
Greed and fear, man.
fear.
Greed and fear.
It's fear.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown and fear of the known. Oh,
Yeah.
But the greedy people used the fear as a tool to get what they wanted, which was like, it's terrifying how easily manipulated I am as a human being.
have you read the Twitter files?
I don't read Twitter.
No. It's an expose of because deep state does exactly that in our country. It is proven fact. When they broke the Twitter files, that's exactly, they fear monger to control the agenda, control the narrative. It's crazy. By that I mean the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. That's deep state. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's all fear based.
Eris was just wondering about how corrupt our state was. The other day
Oh.
we were watching a documentary and she's like, they did what? And I was like, what? Like, you don't know this stuff? Like, I guess not everybody had a full history teacher, but like, I was really surprised that they
Yeah.
did not learn that.
Well, and it affects current events. I mean,
Yeah.
so everybody thinks Ukraine's about, well, a lot of people think Ukraine's about Russia being aggressive toward Ukraine. It has nothing to do with Ukraine whatsoever. It has to do with the United States, totally.
Yeah.
We're fighting a war through another country. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Vietnam was.
Uh,
Ish. And then we had to get into it.
No,
that was
not
a little
like this.
different. That
Okay.
was, yeah.
No. Probably the second Gulf War, but not Vietnam. I'm just sorry.
No, I mean, these are examples of that, that spirit of the world and its influence over when you don't have anything, when you don't have the Spirit of God that you've filled your mind, you've centered your attitude around, it makes you susceptible to those ideologies, to the power of the world.
Every election year, I see this. Like, I see, like, right now we have Harris and Trump as God. People are literally making them their higher powers, and it's disgusting. It's like they don't have any other
Despicable
contender.
human
It's
beings
just-
to have as a god.
But it is. It becomes their whole, like, fear and way of living and everything, and it's like they forgot how to be human, and it's all political ways of behaving.
Mm. Yep.
Your ballot should come with a barf bag.
Well, it rises to that level because those individuals that we elect are the ones that are going to be in control, and they're the ones who are going to be, making the rules that we all have to follow, and, if they make poor choices, then it doesn't just hurt them, it hurts all of society as well.
Yeah, but we also blame politicians for our own actions. Like, it's the same.
We don't just blame politicians, we blame other people.
Yeah,
We
that
point
too,
fingers
but
at anyone else that we can associate, oh, well, hey, things aren't going right in the church, it's my fault, obviously.
Oh, well, not, I
In
mean.
your marriage too?
I thought
That's
the marriage was
obvious.
perfect.
Yeah.
Me, of course.
And you bring up, that leads me to my next verse. So Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." So you remember in Revelation 12 when we unpacked, when it talks about this adversary who was cast down from heaven, his heavenly place, and I think we all agreed that that's symbolic of, this power, this adversary, being removed from a position of authority, a position of sway over leaders and people, nations. And if you look at this in the same light, so against the spiritual forces of the evil in the heavenly places, what if we take that in the same way against those forces and those positions of high authority, positions of power? Because really, it's at the end of the day, it's still a human being in a position of power,
Exactly.
who has the same, has the same motivations, the natural motivations that you and I do, outside of if we were not in church. But also along with that is the tendency of power to corrupt, right? When you're put in a position like that to lead, and you have no protection over your mind or your attitude, who's to say what direction or how far you can digress, or what natural desires you would appease to? And so I think that's what Paul's talking about. It's not necessarily our struggle against our fellow man. The big struggle is against that, the adversary, obviously, that spirit in the world, and it's against those people in positions of authority that have no protection over their mind, over their attitude, who are just susceptible to, or even more so, because they're enticed with power, and to have that influence that comes along with their position. That's something we have to be. Paul's saying we have to be concerned about, because they're the ones that have the ability, and they will, as we read in Revelation, to force you to either bow down to the adversary or kill you. Or to make you a slave.
The first word there is, let's see, you read it, rulers. And King James has it principalities, NAS has it rulers.
Yeah.
It's arche. So when you learn Greek, it's NRK, kaiho, logos, prostum. In the beginning, God created. Beginning. And that word arche means the origin of a thing. So we call Jesus being the first was the arche. Adam was arche. This is referring to the first adversary. So it contain a spiritual element.
Right.
That is not necessarily, because it says not against flesh and blood.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm alluding to. It's not necessarily the person in. It's not the person in a position of authority. It's the
Influence behind it.
the influence behind it.
That's the
Although, you know, the individual would be something to fear as well.
Well, sure, that's the enfleshment of that principle.
But yes, you're right, because when let's say that, you know, we're in a position where that you know, when our government or leaders are forcing us or enticing us to do something in opposition to Christ, the war that's waged on our end is not, it's, well, part of it's fear, right? So are you gonna decide to follow their requests or requirements, or follow Christ out of fear of, you know, what this individual or government can do to you? Are you going to follow them because what they're offering is more enticing than, you know, what Christ offers? So it's when you get down to it, it's really the battle in our own mind, right? In our faith. Because, you know, as we mentioned last week, and there's no distinction between the adversary's will and our will. So if we revert back to if the natural man starts overtaking our faith, then, you know, that's a rough battle for us. Okay, so the dragon, the adversary, at the minimum, I think we can understand that, you know, it encompasses the spirit or attitude that of the world. It encompasses the will of the natural man in his natural state.
To what end?
What do you mean, to what end?
Why? Why is it motivated?
Yeah, that's what we're going to get into. And I've only got 10 minutes left.
You need another week. You're gonna say that till you're done, I get it.
Yeah. So what is the dragon's motivation? What is the adversary's motivation? Well, in Revelation 12, what was it upset about?
Didn't get its baby dinner.
To get its baby dinner? That wasn't the first.
Never gonna forget that now.
Right?
Never.
That wasn't the first thing it was upset
Right?
about.
And it's like, what?
That wasn't the first thing it was upset about.
Put on bib.
Is this the beginning of, was it before 12 then?
Well, what?
Or just like the beginning, like in the garden?
No, so in Revelation 12, before he started pursuing the child, what happened to him?
You got kicked out.
Right, he was removed from his position of authority. Authority was taken away from him. So his motivation, he was upset, right? So
What authority?
what authority?
I'm sorry, yeah. 'Cause I don't buy the Isaiah 14 thing. We've had this discussion before, right? So what authority?
The authority of people's minds, I think.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah. If we stay consistent with what we were talking about, that the adversary makes up the spirit of the world, and which encompasses attitude, motivation, then being removed from a position of authority, his sway over the world, his handle on people is reduced or removed.
The beginning of chapter 12 gives us an image of a woman about to give birth, and then it also gives us this image of this dragon that's before her to try and devour her.
Right,
child.
so what this child is offering, this child is opposing that authority, right? This is another, so if the adversary has control over people's state or mind or spirit, then here comes this entity that has the power to overcome that.
My light bulb went out. Makes sense.
What's that?
Well, when Jesus came out of the baptismal waters, he saw the adversary, who is, according to 2 Corinthians, the ruler of this age. So that would be, just like every ruler, in their best interest to maintain their rulership.
Right.
So that is what that's the motivation. I mean, yeah, as long as you don't serve the kingdom to come and the king to come, then it's okay. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
You're just like
Serve your basic desires. That's still in.
And even if you don't, even if you're just a milquetoast believer that's not dedicated, that serves the purposes just fine. If you never come into covenant, that serves the purpose just fine.
Actually, that's even better, as we'll get into, because
Now you're
he
veiled,
uses truth to. He used the deception of
So we
truth,
got some
right?
truth mixed with a lot of some falsehood that takes you down the wrong road. Any of a number of roads. That makes way more sense than the anointed cherub that covereth crap. That the Jews don't even believe that, but that's how Protestants want to try to
Right.
understand that. That makes way more sense. Wow, sorry, I had a light bulb moment. For all to see.
Yeah, and that would make sense why he pursues the child, right? It's a threat to that position.
But he hasn't been removed from power because he currently is in power.
Right.
Yes.
But the process of being removed is what he is trying to avoid.
Yes.
Yes.
Very astute.
Okay, so his motivation, I think Pastor did a good job of describing that. And it's also, as we've talked about, it's to either destroy or deceive Israel as well. He has he's, for obvious reasons, it seems like his attention, or I keep using his, even I know Scripture uses his, but its motivation is also against Israel, right? To deceive Israel, to destroy Israel. We talked about the beast that's to come, right? And it's influenced by the dragon. And so it wages war against Israel in the last times. What else are its motivations?
Self-preservation, to perpetuate its relevance and presence in whatever way it can.
Yeah.
So using the times, whatever the times are. I think the last 50, 60 years, it's the 2020s right now, but 50 years ago it was the 70s. I mean, I know. I keep thinking it's 2000, so I'm like, trying to do that mental math. There's a lot of differences, but a lot of it's kind of the same. There's a lot of common threads that kind of ebb and flow depending on what's important
Right.
at the time. She's tired. She's sleepy. She needs a binky.
Yeah, and it's I guess to generalize, it's a spirit that naturally seeks to oppose God, right?
But something you said, like, the illusion of truth is still a lie,
Hmm.
and it's sticking in my brain.
So we're going to get into that when we talk about how it operates. So we'll talk about that next week.
It's not like outright, it's not always that outlandish, like,
Right.
clutching, like, audacity.
Right.
Like, it's super, it can be super sneaky.
That's what I was thinking, because from that perspective, right, that it's just a matter of self-preservation. The beast or the kingdom the beast will control will be super great. It'll be awesome.
It makes me think about that
Human-wise.
subversion lesson you brought
Oh.
on, where
Mhm.
it's just suddenly,
Best technology, best healthcare, best utopia.
this is a good thing.
It'll be utopia, yeah. From the human perspective, not God's perspective.
Oh,
It's
that
not gonna-
makes me nervous, like,
Because
what is it?
utopia can't exist.
What is it? For what?
Angel of light, man.
This is
Wow.
good. It must come from God. God is giving us good things because we've been so good.
And it's not that God doesn't want beautiful things for us. It's just not in our nature to make that happen because we are.
Yeah, what's the tendency of people to measure how well are their blessings, right?
Yeah.
It's by
that's-
what they've been,
Am I in God's good graces?
Yeah.
Well, I'm being blessed, so.
well,
That's
Well,
prosperity
how do
culture.
Yeah.
I measure blessings? Wealth and prosperity and
Right.
security and peace and
right,
when Jesus said, I came to set a man against his family, he never promised peace,
right,
except for in your heart with him.
yeah,
I came to set you against your brothers and sisters. There'll be a time in the end when
Right.
you will have to take up a sword.
and we should be of the mind that trials would actually probably be a greater blessing because
Yes.
that's how we grow.
And that's what Scripture says.
Yeah,
Wow.
But how that's quantified is very different based on who you ask
Where you are in the world.
and where you are
Yeah.
in the world. Because I'm thinking it used to be prosperity was measured by the number of children you had. And it's like, I mean, there's places in scripture where it's like, it's better that you just don't have them sometimes. Like, woe to the person with a nursing baby.
Don't let her hear that.
What? I would much, you were talking about, grandchildren being your crown. I would much rather, if my kids know that they don't want kids, don't have them just to find out and hope your mind changes.
yeah.
I would so much rather you just not have them than give in to other people's pressures and have a couple just to see if you feel different. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know people that have done that, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, my mom is telling me and my clock's a ticking, I'll just have one and see how it goes. And it's like, don't do it.
With bouncing that with scripture, it's very easy now for someone that's like for me, when Paul talks about, if you can be like me and not marry, I wouldn't change anything, but when I hear those words, when you're by yourself or when it's just you, you're not distracted. I think about my kids and worry for their future. I think about my grandkids and worry, and that's pulling me away from my focus. You're worried about all of these things, even though you know you're told.
How does that
worry
compel
about
you
it.
to fish? I don't understand.
Still can't help but wonder and worry what the future's going to be like for them, which all of these things pull away from. Not totally pull you away, but it I think of Sauron. I think the eye gets
The eye of
distracted.
Sauron.
I did that on purpose.
We all seen,
But if I was better grounded in my youth and in the Word, I may have. Who knows?
Sure.
I may have
I'm
stayed
envious.
single.
I am envious sometimes of those who are completely unencumbered. And not that marriage and kids are a cumbrance, but talking with Emmy, and I apologize if I step on any toes, but she can do whatever she wants. She wants travel.
have you been by yourself for 2 to 3 weeks?
It sucks.
I meant in the grand scheme of
No,
of the
but,
freedoms
yeah,
there.
but it's a two-edged sword.
You,
I-
when you were
as
single, what were
my
your,
family-
when you were single, what was your
The last time
wish?
I was truly single, I was like 14.
You got no kids?
She's a bad person to ask. She's never really been single as an adult, right? Well, no, you were.
I
You
was,
were.
but I
Yeah,
had
for
two.
a
But I
while.
had two kids. The
Kids,
last
yeah,
time
so
I
you're
was
not
not
Yeah.
partnered. The last time I was
Here,
not
here,
partnered
here.
and childless, I was 14.
But if you
But
want me to be a
when
girl,
you were, before you met Jeff though,
okay,
were you satisfied just being by yourself?
Emmy wants to
For the,
contribute.
Oh,
we can.
Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Emmy.
As somebody who is single, yes, I am encumbered. But I also see the other side. Everyone here, for the most part, is married, has kids. I see that and I'm like, I want that. And it's hard on me because I'm like, I want what you have. And again, it is the double-edged sword. Yes, I can do whatever I want. I definitely can. But also, I like being around kids. I want to have that love that I see with my mom, that I see with Penny and Val, that I see with Pastor Joe and Laura, with Sarah and Justin and Holly and Jeff. I want that. And for me, it's so hard to connect with being mostly everyone in this church has kids.
Yep.
And it's really hard to get out there because I'm very much an introvert. I'm very much like, I know what I want, and a lot of times I am with my church family, or I'm with my own little group. Even within my own friend group, Shelby's married. And I see that and I'm like, I really want that.
yeah, but Shelby found Jorge via, you know,
Right.
Adora. Like, I mean, this is how it gets introduced through friends. Like, you don't know. You still
Again, and that's not what I'm saying, but in the church though, I see a loving husband and wife who follow the Lord, and I want that. And sometimes it's really hard. I'm not, it's very much like Joe said, a double-edged sword.
Yeah, but comparing what Shelby and Jorge have, they're not in a covenant church. It's
No,
very different.
I think she's just, the point is
Yeah.
she desires that connection with someone.
Right,
I
that's
pray
what-
for that for you.
And that's what I'm saying though, is that I desire that connection that I see with my friends, that I see within the family, within the church family. I want that connection with somebody.
Take your time,
I apologize if
because there's gonna,
Spanish spot there.
you got, hey, you got a lot of people around you that wish that they could go back and do it again. Don't grab the brass ring that comes by because it's pretty.
And I'm not doing that, but at the same time,
You're feeling the classic.
yeah.
Understand that too.
And it's,
And I know where you're coming from, Annie, because I was in the same position as you, wanting to be married, but not wanting to be married to someone who was going to drag me away from my church and from the covenant relationship. And really, it's not going to happen just sitting here in the church waiting for the Lord to bring it to you, because it's not happened for me. It's not going to happen that way for her.
Agreed.
We don't
And-
know what God has planned for any of us. 'Cause
Probably
I
not.
have a,
No, but from my own personal experience, that's exactly what I wanted in my life. And I wanted somebody who was going to stand by me, stand by the Lord, and not drag me. Even if it was to go to another church, I would have been okay with that. But not being drawn out of a covenant relationship that I've seen in my sister's marriage. Even though he was supportive of her coming to church, he wasn't wanting to be in the church himself.
And that is something that, like, Sky is an amazing man, and he supports my relationship with Christ 1,000%. He sees the difference in me, but it is hard. It is a radically different thing having a man that believes in something else than sharing that yoke.
He's a rarity.
Yeah.
Guy's a rarity.
Yeah. So I know where you're coming from, but you can't sit here in the church waiting
Yeah,
for
that's,
the Lord to bring the man.
I think
That's-
needs faith is a lot deeper, deeper and greater than you might think at first
Gene's
glance.
faith is amazing.
Because it takes a lot of faith to live that way,
yeah.
a ton. And it takes the same to stay, right? Not the same. It takes faith. That's what I meant, the same. It takes faith to stay where you're at as well, which I don't think it takes as much, because dealing with loneliness, dealing with lack of connection, like Emmy is describing, and I'm sure Janine could too. Trying to find your fulfillment in the Lord because He's not there sitting next to you is a lot harder.
But I
Lot
envy your guys' faith and your strength. That was something that I never had at y'all's, like, any given age, because I was married. I mean, I was pregnant before I was married. I was married, at a young age, and it's like I never had that gumption. I never had that stake in the ground. I never had that kind of faith. I don't know what that's like. And you guys are phenomenal. Like, Emmy, I can look up to you.
That's a scary thought.
It's not a scary
That
thought.
was a scary
It's not a scary thought. I don't think
It's a
that I
massive
can look
compliment.
up to you. I think it's a compliment that you have something that I've never had. And maybe if Sky were to die, I will have that someday. But it's something admirable in you.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I have that strength. Because feeling that disconnect from everybody else. I'm not married, I don't have children, I don't have grandchildren, I don't have a husband. That disconnect can be a very strong force to making me feel like, is this the church for me? And honestly, I've been struggling with that lately, even more so because of work not having enough employees to allow me to be here on Sundays. That disconnect has grown very strong lately in my life, and I literally had to drag myself out of bed this morning and go, I'm struggling. Do I come or do I just stay home?
So glad you're
But the only reason why I'm here this morning is because I love you guys.
We love
And
you so
if
much.
I love you guys, and if I'm going to say that I love you guys, then I need to be here for you guys. And not just throw it all out the window like I've been tempted to a time or two. So I'm sorry that I've been feeling that way. I do have to apologize for that, because that in part is a selfishness. So I wouldn't say that I have that strong strength in me or that faith in me, because I've let it affect me. But
I think that's
when I
start
came
thinking
in
myself.
this morning, I had a couple of things on my heart, and as soon as I walked through that door, something just settled over me. And honestly, you guys are giving me the strength, and probably and me the strength to want to be here with you guys, to try and make that connection, not to take away from any struggle. I know she's struggling too.
is what it is.
And, yeah,
And I'm glad you're sharing it, cause like, it is what it is, but it is difficult, like, you talking about, there are so many times I've, like, especially with what divorce struggles, I get so mad. I get so mad, but like, you know, I'm just so glad I can come here, and I'm glad God can take my anger and my frustrations, and as little as I come here, and as much as I can physically, but like, I get the struggles of getting my
and I
head in one
can't
piece of
promise
work.
that I'm gonna be here every Sunday because of work, but I guess I just need to renew my commitment to you guys, and if I do love you, as I say, I do love you.
Well, you
To be
saw
here
us
when
hop
I
up
can.
and hug you.
To be here when I can.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you for being open too.
No need to apologize for wavering faith because all of us waver and fail.
You're just more open about it.
Well, I guess I would have to say, the strength of my faith is not that strong, but if I take on Messiah's faith and my kid's faith, mine's then there's the strength.
Amen.
I just have
That's
his
the key.
faith and not my own.
That's the answer to that first question.
Yeah.
You just defeated the adversary
Yeah.
for the moment.
Round
Yeah.
542. Wait for the next one.
Yeah.
War is not over. We know we win the war in the end, but
This is good. Thank you. Break. That's the definite break. Low battery.